Honesty was the one condition before we tied the knot, but a secret past I hid out of fear has now become my undoing. Ever since a so-called friend sent him photos of me with my ex, my perfect husband won't even touch me. He won't even eat the breakfast I make. Despite my desperate attempts over the last 7.5 months, I haven't been able to melt his heart. Instead, he calmly told me, if you stay, this is how it is. Expecting love is a sin. Is this it? Am I destined to burn in this fire of his hatred forever? But how exactly did this buried past surface after all these years? Was it a simple mistake or an unforgivable breach of trust? Why did the man who adored me turn to stone in a heartbeat? And how does this nightmare end? Will our marriage survive, or is it doomed to a tragic separation? Hey guys, this is Sneha. Let's dive right in and uncover the full heartbreaking story. If you looked at us from the outside, through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our downtown Toronto condo, you would have hated us. I say that with no ego, just a painful, hollow realisation of what we projected to the world. We were that couple. The one that made single friends roll their eyes and married friends question their own choices. We were the living, breathing definition of the honeymoon phase that never seemed to expire. My name is Jessica. I'm 25, and the man who held my world in the palm of his hand is David. He's 29. David isn't just a husband, he is a presence. He's a detective with the Toronto Police Service. When he walks into a room, the air changes. He carries himself with that specific kind of quiet confidence that you only see in men who deal with chaos for a living, but refuse to let it touch their soul. He's tall, with a jawline that looks like it was carved out of granite, and eyes that can scan a crime scene for the tiniest detail, but soften the moment they land on, or at least they do. To understand why I'm currently living in a silent hell, you have to understand the heaven I lost. You have to understand just how high up I was before I fell. We've been married for 3 years and 3 months, and for the first 3 years of that timeline, I was the most cherished woman in Ontario, maybe even the world. It sounds like an exaggeration, right? Like something ripped out of a cheap romance novel. But it wasn't. It was my Tuesday nights. It was my Sunday mornings. It was my reality. Because David is a high value man in every sense of the term. He's financially secure, incredibly respected in his field, and fiercely loyal. In a city like Toronto, where dating is a nightmare of swiping left and right, finding someone like David was like finding a diamond in a sewer. He could have had anyone. He could have married into old money or found some high-powered corporate lawyer to match his intensity. But he chose me. He treated me like I was a delicate porcelain. His job was grueling. Being a detective in a major city means long hours, sleepless nights, and seeing the absolute worst of humanity. I knew he saw things during his shifts that would give normal people nightmares for weeks. Dead bodies, domestic violence, the grit and grime of the streets. But the second he unlocked our front door, he left that darkness in the hallway. He would walk in smelling like cold wind and stale precinct coffee, and his face would light up. There she is, he'd whisper, wrapping his arms around me, burying his face in my peace. That's what he called me, his peace. He was obsessed with me in the healthiest, most beautiful way possible. I was his first real love. Can you imagine that? A guy like him, 29 years old, handsome as hell, and I was the first woman he had ever poured his entire soul into. Because of that, his emotions were raw and unfiltered. He didn't play game. He didn't have that jaded, guarded wall that most men build up after a few bad breakups. He gave me everything. I remember one night last winter, it was one of those brutal Canadian nights where the temperature drops to -20 and the wind howls against the glass like a banshee. I had come down with a terrible flu, my fever was spiking, my body ached, and I was shivering uncontrollably under 3 layers of blanket. David had a major operation the next morning, a raid, the kind of day where he needed to be sharp, rested, and at 100% capacity, because one mistake could get him or his partner killed. I told him to go sleep in the guest room. Babe, please, I had chattered, my teeth clicking together. You need to sleep. I'm gross. I'm sick. Just go. He didn't say a word and he just walked out of the room. I thought he had listened. I thought he went to get some rest, but 5 minutes later, he came back with a basin of cool water, a fresh washcloth and a glass of electrolyte water. He took off his shirt, climbed into bed next to me and pulled me against his chest. David, you're going to get sick, I whined weakly. And you have work. Shh. he murmured, placing the cool cloth on my forehead. I'm not going anywhere. If you're burning up, I'm burning up with you. And he did. He stayed awake almost the entire night. Every time I tossed or turned, he was there to soothe me. He checked my temperature every hour and he held me while I sweated through the fever, whispering that I was beautiful even when I looked like a wreck. The next morning, the sun came up, piercing through the grey clouds. My fever had broken, but David looked exhausted. His eyes were red-rimmed, heavy with fatigue. He had maybe slept 45 minutes. I watched him put on his badge. I watched him strap his holster to his belt. He adjusted his tie in the mirror, took a deep breath and downed a black coffee in one gulp. You look tired, I said, guilt washing over me. Call in sick. He turned to me, flashing that smile, that devastating, lopsided smile that used to make my knees weak. He walked over to the bed, kissed my forehead and said, I'm fine. Seeing you feel better is all the energy I need. I love you, Jess, more than anything in this world. And then he left. He went out to fight criminals on zero sleep, fueled only by the fact that his wife was okay. That was the standard. That was the baseline of our marriage. He validated me constantly. If I cooked a simple meal, he acted like I was a Michelin star chef. If I dressed up, he couldn't take his eyes off me. We were a unit. A single entity. We had a plan for everything: when we'd buy a house in the suburbs, when we'd start trying for kids, where we'd vacation next summer. I was happy. God, I was so happy. I was living the dream that every girl whispers about at sleepovers. I felt safe. I felt protected. I felt like nothing could ever touch us. But beneath that happiness, beneath the layers of expensive sheets and the warmth of his embrace, there was a tiny cold knot in my stomach, a knot that I tried to ignore, a knot that I tried to drown out with his love. You see, David had placed me on a pedestal so high that the air was thin up there. He saw me as this pure, perfect creature who had saved him from a lonely life. He saw my clean history as a badge of honour. He prided himself on the fact that his wife was different from the girls he arrested, different from the girls his friends complained about. I let him believe it. I let him believe that he was the only one who had ever mattered. I let him believe that my heart had been a blank canvas before he picked up the brush. I looked at him, this man who valued honesty above his own life, and I smiled. I kissed him. I told him I loved him, and every time I said I love you, I was also silently saying, I hope you never find out who I used to be. Because in Toronto, nobody knew. It's a big city, millions of people. The chances of my past colliding with my present seemed mathematically impossible. I'd reinvented myself. I prayed. I dressed modestly. I was the perfect housewife. I had buried the girl I was in college. I had buried her deep, threw dirt over the coffin and walked away without looking back. I thought she was dead. But secrets are like ghosts. You can bury them, you can ignore them, but you can't kill them. They wait. They wait in the shadows of the internet, in the memory of an old friend, in a saved screenshot on a forgotten phone. They wait for the moment when you are happiest, when you have the most to lose. And then they scream. I didn't know it then, watching David leave for work that morning, but the clock was already ticking. The countdown had started. My fairy tale was about to turn into a horror story, and the man who would burn the world down to save me was about to become the man who would watch me burn. And the worst part, the match that started the fire was already in the hands of someone I used to call a friend. To understand why the silence in my house today feels heavier than a tombstone, you have to go back. You have to go back to the days when the air between David and me wasn't filled with tension, but with electricity. You have to go back to the conversations that defined us, and specifically to the one conversation that ultimately destroyed us. It happened about 4 months before he proposed. We were sitting in his car parked down by the waterfront looking out over Lake Ontario. The Toronto skyline was glowing behind us, the CN Tower piercing the night sky like a needle. It was one of those perfect cinematic dates. We had just finished dinner at a nice Italian place in Little Italy, and the mood was heavy with that intoxicating mix of romance and seriousness that comes when you know a relationship is transitioning from dating to forever. Did David turn down the volume on the radio? The heater was humming softly, fighting off the Canadian chill outside. He shifted in his seat, turning his body so he was facing me completely. The playful look in his eyes, the one he had while we were eating pasta, was gone. It was replaced by that intense detective gaze, the look that said, I am reading you. Jess, he started, his voice low and steady. We need to talk. Real talk. My stomach did a little flip. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice light. It sounds ominous. Did I steal too many of your fries at dinner? He didn't smile. He reached out and took my hand. His grip was firm, warm and reassuring, but there was a weight to it. I'm serious, he said. You know how I feel about you. You know, I'm not playing games here. I'm 29. I've got my career set and I'm looking at you and I see a future. I see a wife. I see the mother of my kids. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. This was what I wanted, but then his tone shifted. It became sharper, not angry, just incredibly precise, like he was cutting through the noise to get to the bone. But before we take another step, he continued, I need to be clear about who I am. You know, I'm old school. Maybe it's the job, maybe it's how I was raised, but I value certain things more than money or looks. I value honour. I value purity of character. Paused, looking deep into my eyes, searching for something. I need to know everything, Jessica. If there is anything in your past, any serious relationships, any physical history, any baggage that I need to know about, tell me now, right now. The air in the car suddenly felt very thin. I stopped breathing for a second. What? He squeezed my hand. Listen to me closely. If you tell me now, and it's something I can't handle, we part ways. We hug, we say goodbye, and we leave with no hard feelings. I respect honesty above all else. I'd rather lose you now because of the truth than keep you because of a lie. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that felt like a shout. But if we get married and I find out later, if I find out you hid a past from me, that is betrayal, that is fraud, and I will not live with a liar. I can forgive a past maybe, but I will never forgive deception. My mind started racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It was like a bomb had gone off in my head. I looked at him. He was perfect. He was handsome, successful, moral, strong. He was the kind of man my parents prayed for. He was the kind of man I had prayed for after my life fell apart years ago. And then I thought about him, my past. It wasn't a criminal record. It wasn't drugs. It was a college romance. Back when I was an undergraduate, I was naive. I was young, impressionable, and desperate to fit in. My girlfriends were all dating, all exploring the freedom of university life. They pushed me. Come on, Jess, live a little, don't be a prude. So I fell for a guy, a smooth talker. It was a 2-year relationship. I loved him. I trusted him. I gave him pieces of myself that I could never get back. We were physical. We had those late night intimate chats, the kind where you send stupid emotional texts and photos because you think you're going to marry the guy. But he was a fraud. He cheated on me in the most humiliating way possible. He shattered me. When that relationship ended, I didn't just break up. I broke down. I felt dirty. I felt used. I realised I had compromised my values for a guy who didn't care if I lived or died. So I made a change, a radical change. I turned back to my faith. I started dressing modestly. I stopped partying. I cut off the toxic friends. I spent years rebuilding myself, scrubbing my soul clean, trying to become a woman of substance. I wanted to be someone worthy of a good man. And here he was, David, the reward for my redemption. Sitting in that car, I had a choice, a split-second choice that would define the rest of my life. Option A, tell him the truth. David, I had a boyfriend for 2 years. We were intimate. I thought I loved him, but I was wrong. If I said that, what would happen? David was old school. He had hinted before that he wanted a partner who shared his level of discipline and history. There was a very high chance, maybe 90%, that he would pull his hand away. He would look at me with disappointment, start the car, drive me home, and that would be it. I would lose the best thing that ever happened to me. Option B, say nothing. After all, I reasoned with myself, who was I now? I wasn't that stupid college girl anymore. That girl was dead. I was Jessica the devout, Jessica the loyal, Jessica the good woman. Why should I be punished for a mistake I made when I was a foolish kid? Why should I let a ghost from the past ruin my future? Besides, who would tell him? My ex was long gone. The circle of friends I had back then, we barely spoke. We were in a city of millions. The odds were in my favour. Fear is a powerful liar. It convinced me that admitting the truth wasn't the same as lying. It whispered that I was protecting us. I looked at David. I looked at his hopeful, stern, beautiful face. I saw the life we could have, the house in the suburbs, the kids, the safety. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I smiled that didn't quite reach my eyes, but was convincing enough for a man loved. David, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. There's nothing. You're the first man I've ever felt this way about. My past is clean. You have nothing to worry about. It was a half-truth wrapped in a massive lie. Yes, he was the first man I loved this way, but he wasn't the first. David stared at me for another second, searching for a flinch, a hesitation. He didn't find one. The tension left his shoulders. He exhaled a long breath and smiled, a genuine, relieved smile that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. Good, he said softly, leaning in to kiss me. That's all I needed to know. I trust you, Jess. Implicitly. He trusted me implicitly. That word should have terrified me. Instead, it comforted me. I thought I had survived the test. I thought I had successfully closed the door on the past. We got engaged 4 months later. The ring was stunning. The wedding was a fairy tale. My family was over the moon. His family adored me because they thought I was this pristine, angelic woman who was perfect for their high-achieving son. For 3 years, I lived in that bubble. I was the perfect wife. I overcompensated for my secret by being the absolute best partner imaginable. I cook, I clean, I supported his career. I was affectionate. I wanted to prove to him and to myself that I was worthy of the pedestal he put me. And for 3 years, it worked. I actually forgot about the lie. I truly did. There were days, weeks, months where I didn't even think about my ex. The human brain is amazing at suppressing trauma when things are going well. I convinced myself that my life began the day I met David. The chapters before him were just rough drafts. Scribbles that didn't count. But the universe has a cruel sense of humour. It doesn't care about your redemption arc. It deals in fact. And the fact was, I had lied to a man whose entire career was built on uncovering the truth. I was living in a glass house, throwing stones at my own memory, thinking the wall wouldn't shatter. I didn't know that miles away, in a darker part of the city, a conversation was happening. I didn't know that an old friend from college, one of the girls who had encouraged me to date that loser back then, was scrolling through her old hard drive. I didn't know that jealousy is a slow burning poison. While I was picking out curtains for our living room and planning David's birthday dinner, the storm was gathering. It wasn't coming from a stranger. It wasn't coming from a random encounter. It was coming from the past I thought I had buried. And it was coming with receipts. It was a Tuesday, a regular, boring, beautiful Tuesday in late summer. You know how in movies, right before the car crash or the explosion, the music swells, there's this ominous, heavy cello sound that warns the audience that something terrible is about to happen. But life isn't like that. In real life, tragedy doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on the door. It just walks in while you're folding laundry or drinking an iced coffee. For me, the beginning of the end started with a notification on my phone. It wasn't from David. It wasn't from my mum. It was from a ghost. Or rather, a girl I used to call my best friend. Let's call her Chloe. Chloe and I had drifted apart years ago when I decided to clean up my life, when I started praying again, dressing modestly and focusing on my future. Chloe took it personally. She was still living that wild college lifestyle, the parties, the random hookups, the chaos. To her, my new life was an insult. She thought I was judging her. And maybe in some small, self-righteous part of my heart, I was. But mostly, I just wanted to be safe. I wanted to be far away from the version of myself that made mistakes. But about 7.5 months ago, Chloe reached out. It started innocently enough. Hey, long time no see message on Instagram. She said she was going through a tough time, a breakup, and she just wanted to grab coffee with an old friend. She said she missed me. I hesitated. My gut, that primal instinct that tries to keep us alive, screamed, no, don't go. Leave the door closed. But I felt guilty. I was sitting in my beautiful air-conditioned condo wearing a diamond ring, waiting for my detective husband to come home. I felt like I had won the lottery of life and she was struggling. So I ignored my gut. I thought, what's the harm? It's just coffee. That decision was the nail in my coffin. We met at a trendy cafe on Queen Street West. At first, it was fine. We made small talk. I showed her pictures of my recent trip to Banff with David. I talked about how busy David was with the force, how happy we were. I didn't realise it then, but every word I said was feeding a monster. I watched Chloe's eyes as I spoke. They weren't happy for me. They were cold. They were scanning my designer bag, my ring, my glowing skin. It was pure, unadulterated envy. Then the conversation shifted. Chloe said, stirring her latte aggressively, I saw him the other day. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't have to ask who he was. There was only one he in our history, my ex, the guy who broke me, the guy I had erased from my narrative. Oh, I said, trying to sound indifferent. I haven't thought about him in years. Chloe smirked, a nasty, tight little smile. Really? That's funny because he talks about you all the time. He was showing some of the guys old pictures, from the park. From that weekend trip we all took. The blood drained from my face. At the park, I remembered it instantly. We were young, stupid, and undeniably in love, or what we thought was love. We were lying on the grass, entangled in each other's arms. It was public, it was messy, and it was captured on camera. Not just a selfie. It was a candid shot taken by one of our friends, and then there were the others, the private ones. I don't care, Chloe, I said, my voice trembling slightly. That was a lifetime ago. I'm a married woman now. Right, she laughed, but there was no humour in it. Mrs. Detective, Mrs. Perfect, it's amazing how you just scrubbed everything away. Like you were never one of us. You act like you're this saint, Jessica, but we know the truth. We know what you were like in those chats. My stomach dropped. The chats. I had forgotten about the chats, the late night, hormone-fueled, embarrassing, explicit messages I had sent him. The kind of messages you send when you are 21 and think you're going to be with someone forever. I thought those were gone, deleted, buried in the digital graveyard. What do you want, Chloe? I asked, my palms starting to sweat. I don't want anything, she snapped, her voice rising. I'm just sick of your act. You sit there with your high and mighty attitude, judging my life, acting like you're better than me, just because you snagged a rich cop. You're a fraud, Jess, and frauds get exposed. The argument escalated quickly. I told her she was jealous and bitter. I told her to grow up. I threw a $20 bill on the table and stormed out of the cafe. I was shaking. I was furious, but mostly I was terrified. I went home and paced the living room floor for hours. She wouldn't, I told myself. She's just venting. She's just a mean girl from college. She has no reason to blow up my life. But paranoia is a powerful drug. For the next 2 weeks, I lived on the edge of a panic attack. Every time David's phone pinged, I jumped. Every time he looked at his screen with a frown, I thought, this is it. He knows. But nothing happened. 1 week passed. 2 weeks passed. The fear started to fade, and I convinced myself that Chloe was all talk. She didn't have access to those old chats anyway. My ex had probably deleted them years ago. Who keeps texts from 5 years ago? I started to breathe again. I went back to being the happy wife. Then came the night of the incident. It was a Friday evening, and David had the weekend off, which was rare. We had ordered Thai food and were watching a movie on the couch. I was resting my head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. He was playing with my hair, completely relaxed. I love this, he murmured, kissing the top of my head. Just us, no drama. No work. Me too, I whispered, closing my eyes. I felt safe. I felt like the storm had passed. Then his phone buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was the specific chime for an email notification. And then another buzz. And another. A flurry of notifications from Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. David didn't move at first. He ignored it. David, your phone is blowing up, I said, laughing nervously. Probably work. Probably. He groaned. He reached over to the coffee table and picked up his phone. I watched him. I watched the exact moment his life and mine changed forever. He unlocked the screen. He swiped down to see the notification. At first, his expression was just confused. His brow furrowed. He tapped on a message to open it. The room was silent. The only sound was the dialogue from the TV. Some rom-com couple arguing about flowers, but on our couch, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. I saw David's eyes widen, not in fear, but in shock, and then his face went rigid. The muscle in his jaw jumped. His relaxed posture vanished, replaced by the stiff, alert tension of a police officer assessing a threat. He swiped, he read, he swiped again. He zoomed in on an image. My heart was hammering so hard against my ribs I thought it might crack them. Please be a work email. Please be a crime scene photo. Please be anything but that. He sat there for what felt like an eternity, maybe 3 minutes. But in those 3 minutes, the man who loved me died. And a stranger took his place. Slowly, terrifyingly slowly, he turned his head to look at me. His eyes were different. The warmth was gone. The adoration was gone. They were black holes. They were the eyes of a detective looking at a suspect who had just been caught red-handed. He didn't yell. He didn't throw the phone. He just held it up, the screen facing me. On the screen was a screenshot. It was a photo of me, younger, with messy hair, sitting on my ex-boyfriend's lap in a park, his hands all over me. Below that was a thread of messages. Explicit, detailed, undeniable. And the message attached to the photos read, "Thought you should know who you really married, officer. She's not the saint she pretends to be. Ask her about the weekend in Montreal. Ask her about the guy she forgot to tell you about." It was from Chloe, and she had gotten everything, every photo, every screenshot from her cousin, who was apparently still best friends with my ex. "Jessica," David said. His voice was so quiet, it was barely a whisper, but it cut through me like a serrated knife. "What is this?" I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. My throat was dry. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. "Is this you?" he asked again, his voice rising just a fraction. I could have lied. I could have said it was Photoshop. I could have said it was AI. But I looked at his eyes. He is a detective. He detects lies for a living. He had already analysed the photo. He knew. "Yes," I whispered. Tears instantly blurred my vision. "David, please, let me explain. It was years ago. It was before you." He stood up. He stood up so abruptly that he knocked the coffee table with his shin. But he didn't even flinch. He looked down at me, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw disgust. Pure, raw disgust. "You told me," he said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "You looked me in the eye in my car and you told me there was nothing. You told me you were clean. You told me I was the first." "I was afraid," I sobbed, reaching out to grab his hand. I was afraid of losing you. I didn't want my past to ruin us." He recoiled from my touch as if I were radioactive. He took a step back, holding his hands up. "You didn't just lie about a boyfriend, Jessica." He spat the words out. "You built a character. You played a role. I married a woman who doesn't exist." "No, I am that woman. I changed. I'm the Jessica who loves you." I was screaming now, crying hysterically, falling to my knees on the rug. "David, please, it was just a stupid college relationship. It means nothing." He looked at the phone again, then at me. "It means nothing," he repeated, a dark laugh escaping his lips. "It means you are a liar. It means for 3 years, every time I bragged about your values, every time I defended you to the world, you were laughing at me inside. I never laughed at you. I love you." He turned his back on me. He walked toward the bedroom door. "And David, where are you going?" I scrambled up, following him. He stopped at the doorway. He didn't turn around. "Don't follow me," he said. His voice was dead, flat. "Do not come into the bedroom. Do not speak to me. If you say one more word tonight, I will pack a bag and I will never come back." He walked to the bedroom and slammed the door. I heard the lock click. I stood there in the hallway, the smell of Thai food still in the air, the TV still playing that stupid rom-com. I stood there and realised that the bomb hadn't just gone off. It had levelled the entire city. I sank to the floor, curled into a ball and stared at the closed door. I knew deep in my bones that the man behind that door wasn't my husband anymore. I had turned him into my judge, my jury, and my executioner. And the trial had just begun. I didn't sleep, obviously. I spent the night curled up on the hardwood floor of the hallway, right outside the bedroom door. I was like a dog, waiting for its master to come home, except my master was on the other side of the wood, probably staring at the ceiling, hating me. Every hour that ticked by felt like a year. The condo was dead silent. You know, that specific kind of silence that happens in a high-rise city apartment. You can hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant wail of a siren 10 blocks away, the settling of the building's foundation. But inside, the air was thick. It was suffocating. I kept replaying the last 3 years in my head. Every smile, every I love you, every vacation. I was looking for clues, wondering if he had ever suspected me before, but there were none. I had been a perfect actress, and that was the problem. Around 6 a.m, the sun started to bleed through the sheer curtains in the living room, a cruel, bright morning light. The world was waking up, people were getting coffee, traffic was starting on the Gardner Expressway, life was going on. But my life had stopped at 9 p.m. the previous night. Then I heard it at the lock click. My heart hammered against my throat. I scrambled to my feet, my legs numb and stiff from sleeping on the floor. I smoothed down my pyjamas, wiped the dried mascara from my cheeks and tried to look, I don't know, repentant, human. The door opened. David walked out. He was fully dressed, not in his uniform, but in his suit, the charcoal one he wears for court dates or serious interrogations. His shirt was crisp, his tie perfectly knotted. He looked immaculate, but his face, oh God, his face. He looked 10 years older. There were dark purple circles under his eyes. His skin had a grey, pallid tone. But the worst part was his eyes. eyes. Usually when he wakes up, his eyes are soft, sleepy, full of warmth. Now they were glass, cold, hard, impenetrable glass. He didn't look angry. Anger I could handle. Anger implies passion. Anger implies he still cares enough to scream. He looked done. He looked at me the way he looks at a stranger on the subway. No recognition, no affection, just a blank, clinical stare. "David," I croaked. My voice was raspy from crying. "Please, can we talk?" He didn't stop walking and he moved past me, creating a wide arc to avoid brushing against my shoulder as if I had a contagious disease. He went straight to the kitchen. "David, please!" I followed him, my desperation rising. "You can't just ignore me. I'm your wife." He stopped. He was standing by the coffee machine, his hand hovering over a pod, and he didn't turn around. His back was stiff, his shoulders tense. "My wife," he repeated. His voice was low, flat, and terrifyingly calm. "That's a word you like to use, isn't it?" He turned around slowly. He leaned back against the granite counter, crossing his arms over his chest. It was a posture I had seen him use 100 times when he was talking about suspect. It was his interrogation mode, and now I was the suspect. "Sit down, Jessica," he said. It wasn't a request, it was an order. I sat on one of the bar stools at the island, my hands trembling in my lap. I felt small. I felt like a child who had broken a priceless vase. "I'm going to ask you a few questions," he said, his eyes drilling into mine. "And for the first time in our relationship, you are going to give me the truth. If you lie to me, if I sense even 1 ounce of deception, I will walk out that door and file the papers by noon. Do you understand?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, I understand." "Did you sleep with him?" The question was blunt, brutal. "Yes," I whispered. "For how long?" 2 years. He flinched. It was microscopic, a tiny tightening of his lips, but I saw it. 2 years. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a one-night stand. That was a life. And the messages? He pulled his phone out of his pocket. He didn't unlock it. He just held it like a weapon. "The things you said to him, the pictures. Was that you? Or did someone force you?" It was me," I sobbed. "I was young, David. I was stupid. I thought I was in love." "I didn't know any better." "You were 21, he cut in, his voice icy. "You weren't a child. You were an adult making choices." He took a step closer. "You know what hurts the most? It's not the sex. I'm a grown man, Jessica. I know people have histories. I know people have exes." He paused and his voice cracked just for a second. "It's the fact that you looked me in the eye in my car when I gave you an out. I gave you a graceful exit. I told you who I was. I told you what I valued, and you decided right there and then to take away my choice. I didn't want to lose you," I wailed. "I loved you too much to lose you." "That's not love," he said, shaking his head slowly. "That is selfishness. Pure narcissistic selfishness. You wanted the lifestyle. You wanted the security. You wanted the high value man. So you scammed me. You committed fraud, Jessica. You sold me a version of yourself that didn't exist. I am that version," I pleaded. "I changed. I came back to religion. I stopped partying. I became the woman you wanted." "You acted like the woman I wanted," he corrected me. "There is a difference between being innocent and hiding your guilt. You didn't change because you wanted to. You changed because you wanted to catch a husband, and you caught one. Congratulations." His words were like physical blows. Every sentence stripped away another layer of my dignity. Then he unlocked his phone, he scrolled for a second and then turned the screen toward me again. It was one of the screenshots Chloe had sent. A text message exchange from 5 years ago. Me, old text. "I can't wait for tonight. I'll do anything you want. I'm yours." David read it out loud, hearing my own words, my private, intimate words meant for another man coming out of my husband's mouth. It was the most humiliating moment of my life. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. "Did you say this to him?" David asked, pointing at the screen. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. "And did you mean it?" I thought I did. "So," David said, tossing his phone onto the counter with a loud clatter. "When you said those things to me on our wedding night, were you recycling lines? Was I just the next guy in line to hear your script?" "No!" I screamed, standing up. "But David, that is unfair. What I have with you is real. He cheated on me. He broke me. You healed me." "I didn't heal you," David said coldly. "I was just the fool who didn't know he was picking up someone else's leftovers." The room went deadly silent. The word hung in the air. Leftovers. It was cruel. It was misogynistic. It was horrible. But in that moment, I knew he wasn't saying it to be a chauvinist. He was saying it because he was bleeding. He was a man who prided himself on being the one, on being special. And suddenly he felt common. He felt used. He walked over to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water, and he took a long drink, his back to me again. David, I whispered, my energy gone. What do we do now? Do you want a divorce? He stood there for a long time. I watched the muscles in his back tense and relax. He was calculating. He was processing. Finally, he turned around. The fire was gone from his eyes. Now there was just ash. No, he said quietly, I'm not going to divorce you. A tiny spark of hope flared in my chest. You're not? No, he said, because I made a vow before God, and unlike you, I don't break my promises. I don't lie. I said for better or for worse. Well, this is the worse. He walked past me, heading toward the front door to put on his shoes. But listen to me very carefully, Jessica, he said, lacing up his dress shoes. He didn't look at me while he spoke. Just because we are married on paper doesn't mean we are married in spirit. You killed that last night. You killed the man who adored you. He's dead. He's not coming back. He stood up, grabbed his keys and his badge. He put his hand on the doorknob. I will pay the bills, he said, his voice void of any emotion. I will keep this roof over your head. I will not shame you in front of our families because I have too much dignity for that. To the world, we will be fine. But inside this house, do not expect anything from me. Do not touch me. Do not ask me how my day was. Do not tell me you love me, because every time you say that word now, it makes me sick. David, please, I begged, taking a step toward him. We can fix this. We can go to counselling. I'll do anything. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. He looked at me one last time. It was a look of profound pity. You can't fix a lie, Jessica, he said. Once the truth is out, you can't put it back in the box. You're a stranger to me now. I don't know you. And frankly, I don't want to know you. He opened the door. The sounds of the hallway, the elevator chiming, a neighbour walking their dog rushed in. Have a nice day, he said. It was the same polite, meaningless phrase he would say to a cashier at a grocery store. Then he walked out, the door clicked shut, the lock engaged. I was alone. I stood in the middle of our luxury kitchen, surrounded by the life we had built, and I realised that while the house was still standing, the home was gone. He hadn't divorced me. He had done something worse. He had demoted me. I wasn't his wife anymore. I wasn't his piece. I wasn't his soulmate. I was just a roommate with a ring, a tenant in his life. I slid down the cabinets until I hit the floor, burying my face in my hands. The morning sun was shining bright and happy across the floorboards, mocking me. I had kept the man, but I had lost his heart. And as I sat there, weeping into my knees, I realised with terrifying clarity that this wasn't the end of my punishment. This was just day one. The first week was a blur. It was a haze of swollen eyes, empty tissue boxes, and a silence so loud it made my ears ring. I kept waiting for the explosion. I kept waiting for him to yell, to break things, to scream at me until his throat was raw. I was ready for the anger. I could have handled the anger. Anger is heat. Anger means there is still something burning, but there was no explosion. There was just winter. David didn't leave. He didn't pack a bag. He didn't file papers. He stayed. But the man who stayed wasn't my husband. He was a ghost wearing my husband's clothes. We entered a new phase of our existence. I call it the roommate phase, but even that gives it too much credit. Roommates talk. Roommates ask how your day was. Roommates might share a pizza on a Friday night. We were less than roommates. We were two repelling magnets forced into the same box. Let's talk about the nights first, because that's where the torture is most specific. For 3 years, our bed was our sanctuary. It was a king-sized island of safety. We were cuddlers. David used to sleep with one arm draped over my waist, pulling me into him like a spoon. I would fall asleep to the rhythm of his breathing against my neck, and if I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, he would instinctively reach out for me in his sleep, mumbling, "Jess, you okay?" Now, the bed is a battlefield. On that first night after the confrontation, I didn't think he would come to bed. I thought he'd take the guest room. But around 11:30 p.m, he walked into the master bedroom and he didn't look at me. He didn't acknowledge the fact that I was sitting up against the headboard, reading a book I wasn't actually reading, just waiting for him. He stripped down to his boxers in the dark, turned his back to me and got in. He moved to the absolute edge of the mattress. There was a gulf of space between us. maybe 2 feet of cold, empty sheet. It felt like the Grand Canyon. "David," I whispered into the darkness. "Good night." Silent. Just the sound of the HVAC system humming. I laid there staring at his back. I could see the outline of his shoulders in the dim light from the street lamps outside. I wanted to reach out. Every cell in my body ached to bridge that gap, to touch his skin, to remind him that I was still here, still the woman he loved. But I was terrified. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I drifted off. A few hours later, it must have been around 3:00 a.m. I moved in my sleep. It was muscle memory. My body, asleep and unaware of the war we were in, sought out his heat. My hand drifted across the empty space and brushed against his back. The reaction was instantaneous. He didn't just move away, he recoiled. It was like I had burned him with a hot iron. He jerked his body away, sat up abruptly and threw the covers off. "Don't!" he snapped. His voice was thick with sleep, but razor sharp with disgust. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding. I'm sorry, I was asleep. I didn't mean to." He didn't say another word. He grabbed his pillow, stood up and walked out of the room. A few seconds later, I heard the door to the guest bedroom slam shut. I lay there alone in the king-sized bed, shivering, staring at the empty spot where he had been. I felt dirty. I felt like a leper. My own husband couldn't bear the accidental touch of my skin. That set the pattern for the last 8 months. He sleeps in our bed most nights, probably to keep up appearances in his own head or maybe just out of habit, but he builds a wall of pillows between us, a physical barricade. If I so much as breathe too loudly, he sighs. If I turn over, he tenses up. We sleep together, but we wake up alone. And the mornings are worse, eh? I decided early on that I would win him back through service. I thought, if I can just show him how much I care, if I can just be the perfect wife, he'll soften. He has to soften. So I started waking up at 5:30 a.m. David usually leaves for the precincts around 7:00. I would go to the kitchen, quiet as a mouse, and prepare a full breakfast. Not just toast. I'm talking omelettes with spinach and feta, pancakes, fresh fruit, brewed coffee from the beans he likes. I set the table. I folded the napkin. I made it look like a hotel. The first morning I did this, about 3 days after the day, I waited nervously by the counter. David walked out of the bedroom, fully dressed in his suit, his gun holster clipped to his belt. He looked tired. He looked handsome. He walked into the kitchen. He saw the table. He saw the steaming coffee. He saw me standing there with a hopeful, pathetic smile on my face. "And I made breakfast," I said softly. "You have a long day." He didn't break stride and he walked past the table, past the food, past me. He went straight to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water and headed for the door. "David," I called out, "I made you coffee." He stopped at the door, his hand on the knob. He didn't turn around. "I'll grab something at Tim Hortons," he said. "But it's fresh. It's right here." "I'm not hungry," he said, and then he left. He left me standing there with a table full of food that would go cold and eventually end up in the trash. He has not eaten a single meal I have cooked in 8 months, not one. If I make dinner, he says he ate at the station. If I make a snack, he ignores it. It's a passive-aggressive hunger strike against my love. He is telling me without words that he does not want to be nourished by me. He does not want to owe me anything. He does not want to take anything from my hands because he views my hands as unclean. The rejection is total. It is comprehensive. Before this, we used to text all day. "Thinking of you. Miss you. Pick up milk on the way home. Love you, beautiful." Now, my phone is a paperweight. I stare at our chat history. The last loving message he sent me is dated 7.5 months ago. Since then, it's just logistic. Rent paid. Working late. Buy detergent. If I text him something personal, like, "How is your day going? I hope you're safe," he leaves it on read. No reply. No acknowledgement. He is ghosting me while paying the mortgage. I became paranoid, naturally. A man who suddenly goes cold, who stays out late, who refuses to touch his wife, or the mind goes to one place. There must be someone else. Maybe he found someone to replace me. Maybe he's getting the comfort I can't give him from a colleague or waitress or anyone who isn't a liar. So I did something I'm not proud of. I became a spy in my own home. One night, while he was in the shower, I saw his iPad on the couch. He had left it unlocked. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I opened his WhatsApp, I checked his messenger, I checked his call logs. I was looking for a name, a woman, a flirtatious emoji, anything to explain why I was being punished. But I found nothing. Absolutely nothing. His chats were all work-related. Case file 402. Meet at the precinct. Squad meeting. He wasn't cheating. He was just working. He was burying himself in cases. He was taking every overtime shift, every extra assignment, every excuse to be away from me. I put the iPad down and felt a wave of relief, followed immediately by a wave of despair that was 10 times heavier. If he was cheating, I could be angry. If he was cheating, I could blame him. I could say, see, you're no better than me. We could fight. We could scream. There would be passion. But he wasn't cheating. He was just existing. He was a man of honour who felt trapped in a marriage with a fraud. His fidelity hurt more than infidelity would have. It proved that his issue wasn't that he wanted another woman. It was that he didn't want me. Living in this house feels like living in a high-end morgue. He comes home late, usually between 11:45 p.m. and midnight. I sit on the couch pretending to watch Netflix just so I can see him for 5 minutes. He walks in. He takes off his shoes. Hi, I say. He replies, that's it. That is our conversation. He goes to the kitchen, drinks water and goes to the bedroom. If I try to follow him, if I try to engage him, he puts up a hand. Jessica, don't, he says. I'm tired. I just want peace. Peace. He uses that word like a weapon. I just want peace is code for I just want you to stop existing in my space. Yesterday I broke. It was a Saturday. He was actually home for once, sitting in the living room reading a file. He looked so normal. He looked like the David I married. The sun was hitting his face and for a split second I forgot about the last 8 months. I walked over to the couch and sat down next to him, not touching him but close. David, I said softly, the cherry blossoms are blooming in Hyde Park. Remember last year we went for a walk and got ice cream? He didn't look up from the file. I remember. Maybe we could go just for an hour, get some fresh air. He turned the page of his file. The sound of the paper crinkling was deafening. I'm busy, he said. You're not working right now, I pushed, my voice trembling. You're just reading. David, please, I'm lonely. I'm so lonely in this house. I just want to walk with you. He slowly closed the file. He took off his reading glasses and placed them on the table. Then he turned to look at me. It was that same look, the look of polite indifference. I can't go to the park with you, Jessica. Why not? Tears pricked my eyes. Because you hate me. No, he said calmly. Because if we go to the park, I have to hold your hand. I have to pretend, and I don't have the energy to pretend anymore. It's exhausting enough just being in this room with you. I felt like he had slapped me. So what are we doing? I whispered, a tear rolling down my cheek. How long do we do this? Is this my life now? Watching you turn into a statue. You have a choice, he said, picking up his glasses again. I told you on day one, the door is unlocked. You can leave any time you want. You can go find someone who doesn't care about your past, someone who appreciates the version of you that you are. But I want you, I sobbed. Well, he said, opening the file and returning his gaze to the paper. That's unfortunate, because the version of me that wanted you killed him. Stop asking a dead man to take you for a walk. He went back to reading. I sat there for a minute, paralysed by the cruelty of his calm. Then I got up and went to the bathroom. I turned on the shower so he wouldn't hear me scream. I sat on the tile floor, water pouring over me, fully clothed, and I screamed into a towel until my throat bled. He never came to check on me. He never knocked on the door. I realised then that I am not just a stranger to him. I am a ghost. I am haunting this apartment, rattling chains, begging to be seen. But he has learned to look right through me. And the scariest part, I think he's getting used to it. I think he prefers the ghost to the wife. But I can't leave, I can't, because despite the ice, despite the silence, despite the rejection, I still see glimpses of him. And I have to believe, I need to believe, that somewhere deep down under the layers of betrayal, my David is still in there. But how much longer can I survive this cold before I freeze to death? If silence had a sound, it would be the hum of our refrigerator at 11:45 p.m. That sound has become the soundtrack of my life. It's a low electric drone that drills into my skull while I sit on the beige sectional sofa staring at the front door waiting. It's a waiting game that shreds my nerves every single night. I know he's coming. I know the routine, but my body still reacts like I'm waiting for a bomb to go off. 11:45 p.m. The key turns in the lock. Click. That sound used to make my heart soar. It used to mean, David is home. My love is safe. The day can finally end. Now, that click is the sound of the air being sucked out of the room. He walks in. He looks exhausted. His tie is loosened. His top button undone. He carries the weight of the city on his shoulders. For a split second, just a millisecond, he looks up and his eyes meet mine. And in that tiny fraction of a second, I see it. I see the old David. I see the man who used to drop his bag and open his arms for a hug. But then the shutter comes down. The light in his eyes goes out. He remembers. He remembers the photos. He remembers the lie. Hi, I say. My voice is small, pathetic. I hate how weak I sound. He doesn't stop walking. He heads straight for the hallway. That's it. It's not a word. It's not a greeting. It's a noise. It's the minimum amount of vocal effort a human being can make to acknowledge another life form without actually engaging with them. It's a sound you make when you bump into a chair. He walks past me and the scent of him trails behind gun oil, cologne and cold night air. It's a scent that makes my stomach twist with longing. I want to jump up, grab him by the lapels of his jacket and shake him. I want to scream, I am here, I am flesh and blood. Stop looking through me. But I don't. I just sit there freezing in the Arctic chill he leaves in his wake. For the last 8 months, this silence has been eating me alive. It's not the silence of peace. It's the silence of a held breath. That we are living in a library where talking is forbidden. One evening last week, I tried to break it. I couldn't take it anymore. The silence felt heavy, physical, like it was pressing down on my chest. He was in the kitchen drinking a glass of water. He was leaning against the counter, staring at the floor. David, I said, stepping into the room, we need to talk about the groceries. He didn't look up. Send me a list. No, I said, my voice shaking. I don't want to send you a text. I'm standing 3 feet away from you. Can't we just speak? Like humans, we need milk, we need eggs, we need to talk about the leak in the bathroom sink. He slowly set the glass down. He looked at the water rings on the counter. Send me a list on Messenger, he repeated, his voice monotone. Why won't you look at me? I demanded, taking a step closer. Is my face that repulsive to you now? Did I turn into a monster? Finally looked up. His face wasn't angry, it was just blank. Talking to you requires energy, Jessica, he said softly. It requires me to pretend that everything is normal and I am fresh out of energy. If you want groceries, text me. If you want the sink fixed, call a plumber. Just stop pushing. I'm not pushing. I'm trying to survive, I cried out. I'm trying to have a conversation with my husband. Your husband isn't here, he said, pushing off the counter and walking toward the bedroom. He checked out months ago. I watched him walk away and I felt a piece of my soul wither. He would rather type on a screen than hear my voice. He treats me like an annoying administrative assistant he can't fire because of a contract. But the emotional distance is one thing. The physical distance, that is a torture designed specifically for me. I am a tactile person. My love language is touch. David knows. He used to exploit it in the best way possible, constantly holding my hand, brushing my hair back, resting his hand on my thigh while driving. He knew that his touch was my grounding wire. Now he starves me. It's been 8 months since his skin has touched mine with any intention. 8 months of absolute physical isolation. Do you know what skin hunger feels like? It's a real thing. It feels like your bones are aching. You start to feel transparent, like if someone doesn't touch you soon, you might just dissolve into the air. There was one night, about 3 weeks ago, where the starvation got too bad. We were in bed. The great wall of pillows was between us. He was asleep, or pretending to be. I was lying there staring at the ceiling, tears leaking out of the corners of my eyes and running into my ears. I felt so lonely that it physically hurt. I turned my head, I looked at his back. I could see the rhythmic rise and fall of his breathing. I needed him. I didn't need sex. I needed contact. I needed to know that I wasn't alone in the universe. Slowly, terrifyingly slowly, I reached out my hand. My fingers hovered over his shoulder. I was shaking. I knew the rules. Do not touch. But my need was stronger than my fear. I lowered my hand and gently rested my palm on his shoulder blade. The reaction was violent. He didn't just wake up. He flinched like he had been electrocuted. He gasped, his body jerking away from me so hard that he almost rolled off the bed. He sat up, breathing hard, clutching his chest. He turned to look at me in the dark. What are you doing? He hissed. I just wanted to hold you, I whispered, sobbing. David, please, I'm dying here. Just hold me. Just for 5 minutes. You don't have to say anything. Just let me be close to you. He stared. For a moment, I thought he might give in. I saw his shoulders slump. I saw the conflict in his face. I can't, he said, his voice cracked. Why? I begged. I'm your wife. I'm the same body you've loved for 3 years. That's the problem. he said, his voice trembling. My body remembers you, Jessica. My body wants to hold you, but my mind sees the pictures. Every time I close my eyes, I see you with him. I see you in that park. I see the texts. He rubbed his face with his hands, a gesture of pure exhaustion. If I touch you, he whispered, I feel like I'm betraying myself. I feel like I'm accepting the lie. I can't do it. It makes my skin crawl. It makes my skin crawl. Those words hit me harder than a fist. I recoiled, pulling my hand back to my chest, curling into a ball. I'm sorry, I choked out. Don't, he said. He grabbed his pillow. I'm sleeping on the couch. He left again. I lay there in the ruins of my marriage, realising that my touch, which used to heal him, now disgusts him. But the most twisted part of this nightmare, the most confusing part, the social masquerade. Because we live in a society, we have families, we have obligations. David is a respected officer. He has an image to maintain, and he is too proud, too private to let the world know that his marriage is a sham. So we pretend. 2 weeks ago, we had to attend his captain's retirement dinner. It was a formal event. All the top brass were there. David came home early that day. Get dressed, he said from the doorway. Wear the blue dress, the one you wore to my graduation. I felt a flicker of hope. He remembered the dress. I spent 2 hours getting ready. I did my hair, I did my makeup, I put on the blue dress. I looked in the mirror and saw the woman he used to love. I thought, maybe tonight with the music and the wine, he'll see me again. We drove to the venue in silence as usual. But the moment we stepped out of the car, the transformation happened. David walked around the car and opened my door, and he offered me his hand. I took it, and his grip was firm, warm. Smile, he whispered, not looking. Showtime. We walked into the banquet hall hand in hand, and for the next 4 hours, David was perfect. He was the Oscar-winning actor of the year. He introduced me to his colleagues with a hand on the small of my back, and he laughed at my jokes. He pulled out my chair when the captain made a speech about the importance of family. David squeezed my hand on the table. Everyone looked at us with envy. Oh, look at David and Jessica, I heard a lieutenant's wife say. Still in the honeymoon phase, he adores her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up on the table and shout, it's a lie. He hasn't looked at me in 8 months. He hates me. But I didn't. I played my part. I smiled. I leaned into him. I soaked up his warmth like a starving plant soaking up the sun. For 4 hours, I pretended we were okay. I let myself believe the lie. Then the night ended. We said our goodbyes. We walked back to the car, his arm around my waist, protecting me from the cold wind. He opened the car door for me. I got in, my heart fluttering. Maybe this was the breakthrough. Maybe the act had sparked something real. He got into the driver's seat and he closed the door. The sound of the latch clicking shut was like a guillotine blade. Instantly, the mask fell off. He let out a long breath, slumped his shoulders and dragged his hand down his face. The warmth vanished. The perfect husband dissolved and the roommate returned. He started the car and drove home in absolute dead silence. I looked at him. You were great tonight, I ventured, testing the waters. I did what I had to do, he said, staring straight ahead at the highway. David, I reached out and touched his arm. It felt real. Didn't it feel real to you? Even for a second? He pulled his arm away, gently but firmly. It was a performance, Jessica, he said coldly. Don't confuse the show with the reality. I protected my reputation, that's all. Is that all I am to you now? I asked, tears stinging my eyes again. A prop for your reputation? He stopped at a red light. He turned to look at me, his face illuminated by the red glow of the traffic signal. You used to be my life, he said. Now. Yes, you're the reason I don't look like a fool in front of my boss. That's the only value you have left in this relationship. The light turned green. He drove on. I sat there in the dark passenger seat, wearing the expensive blue dress, feeling like a doll that had been taken out of the box for play pouring and was now being shoved back into the closet. We got home. He went straight to the guest room to change. He didn't say goodnight. I stood in the living room, unzipping my dress alone. The silence returned. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. I realised then that this silence, this indifference, this polite hatred is worse than any screaming match. It's worse than him hitting me. Because you can fight against violence. You can scream back at anger. But you can't fight a void. You can't argue with nothing. He has hollowed me out. I am fading. I am transparent. And I don't know how much longer I can stay solid before I completely disappear. But I know one thing. Something has to break. Either he breaks or I do. We cannot survive another month of this. The tension in the house is so thick, it feels like a physical weight. And last night he said something that chilled me to the bone. As he was walking past me to go to bed, he stopped. He didn't look at me, but he spoke. "Jessica," he said. "Yes," I answered, breathless. "I filed for a transfer," he said, "to the organised crime division." My blood ran cold. Organised crime? That's deep cover. That's dangerous. That's long assignments away from home. "Why?" I whispered. "Because," he said, finally looking me in the eye, "it's the only way I can get away from you without breaking my vows. If I'm undercover, I don't have to come home." He walked into the bedroom and closed the door. "He is planning to leave, not legally, but physically. He is going to disappear into his work to escape me. I have to do something. I have to make a move. I can't let him fade away. I have to force a confrontation. I have to make him feel something, even if it's hate, because hate is better than this nothingness. Tomorrow I'm going to confront him. No more texts, no more lists. I'm going to corner him and I'm going to get my answer, even if it destroys me." The morning sun didn't rise today. It just turned the sky a bruised, angry shade of grey. Rain was lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our condo, blurring the view of the CN Tower until it looked like a smear of watercolour paint. It was fitting. I stood in the hallway, my back pressed against the front door. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, like a bird trapped in a cage. I was trembling, not from cold, but from adrenaline. This was it. The transfer. The organised crime unit. If David walked out that door today without us speaking, I just knew he would slowly disappear from my life until he was nothing more than a paycheck deposited into our joint account. I heard his footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, the sound of his dress shoes on the hardwood floor. He came around the corner, adjusting his watch. He looked immaculate as always. Navy suit, white shirt, the holster hidden beneath his jacket. He stopped dead when he saw me blocking the exit. He didn't look surprised. He just looked tired. "Move, Jessica," he said. His voice was low, devoid of any warmth. "No," I said. My voice shook, but I planted my feet wider. "We are not doing this today. You are not going to work until you look at me. You are not going to run away to some undercover unit just to avoid your wife." He sighed, a long, weary exhale through his nose. He pinched the bridge of his nose, closing his eyes for a second. "I'm going to be late for briefing," he said calmly. "Move." "I don't care about the briefing," I screamed. The sound ripped through the quiet apartment, startling even me. "I care about us. I care about the fact that you're planning to leave me without actually leaving me. You're a coward, David." That got him. His eyes snapped open. The coward insult hit the mark. For a man who prides himself on bravery, on running toward gunfire, being called a coward by his wife was a slap in the face. He took 2 quick steps toward me. For a second, I was scared. Not that he would hit me. He would never do that. But his energy was intense. It was suffocating. "A coward?" he repeated, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You're calling me a coward? I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one paying the bills for a life that was built on a lie. I'm the one waking up every morning next to a stranger who manipulated me into marriage, and I'm the coward?" "Yes," I cried, tears spilling over. "Say it." "Because you won't fight for us. You just shut down. You punish me with silence. You treat me like a criminal because I made a mistake before I even met you." "It wasn't a mistake," he roared. The explosion finally happened. The ice shattered. He slammed his hand against the wall next to my head. I flinched, but I didn't move. He was breathing hard, his face inches from mine, his eyes wild with 8 months of suppressed rage. "Stop calling it a mistake," he shouted, his composure completely gone. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is running a red light. What you did was a campaign. It was fraud, Jessica, fraud. I loved you," I sobbed, grabbing the lapels of his suit jacket. "I lied because I loved you. I knew you would leave if you knew. I couldn't lose you. And that is exactly why I can't look at you," he yelled back, shaking me off. He paced away from me, running his hands through his hair, pacing in a tight circle in the foyer. "Do you get it?" he asked, spinning around to face me. "It's not the sex. I don't give a damn about who you slept with in college. I'm a cop, Jessica. I see the worst of humanity every day. I know people have passed. I know people aren't perfect. He pointed a finger at me, his hand shaking. But you stole my agency. You stole my choice. I told you explicitly what my deal breakers were. I laid my cards on the table. I gave you the respect of being honest. And you looked at my boundaries and you decided they didn't matter. You decided you knew better. You decided to trick me into loving you. I didn't trick you. You did. He cut me off. You presented me with a fake woman, a pious, innocent, honest woman who shared my values. I fell in love with her. I didn't fall in love with the girl who sends explicit photos to drug dealers and frat boys. I fell in love with a mirage. I am not a mirage, I screamed, my chest heaving. I am right here. I cook your meals. I wash your clothes. I wait for you every night. I am the same woman who held you when your mother died. I am the same woman who prays for you every shift. Why does the past erase all of that? He stopped pacing. He looked at me and the anger in his eyes slowly morphed into something much worse, profound, bottomless disappointment. He walked back to me. He didn't yell this time. He spoke softly, which was infinitely more terrifying because he said, every time you do something nice for me now, I wonder if it's real. You cook me breakfast. Is it love or is it manipulation? You cry? Are you sad or are you just a good actress? You say you love me. Is it true or are you just terrified of losing the lifestyle I provide? I froze. I don't trust you, Jessica, he whispered. The foundation is gone. You can build a beautiful house. You can paint the walls, you can buy expensive furniture, but if the foundation is cracked, the house is condemned, and we are condemned. So fix it, I begged, reaching for his hand again. We can go to therapy, we can start over. I'll do anything, David. I'll take a lie detector test. I'll give you all my passwords. Just tell me what to do. He looked down at my hand, clutching his. He didn't pull away this time. He just looked at it like it was a foreign object. You can't fix a bell that's been rung, he said. I can't unknow the truth. I can't unsee the photos. And I can't unfeel the betrayal. He gently, very gently, pried my fingers off his hand. He stepped back. I'm taking the transfer, he said. His voice was final. It was the verdict. I start with the organised crime division next month. I'll be working irregular hours. I'll probably be sleeping at the safe house most nights. So you're leaving me? I whispered. No, he said. I'm staying married to you. I will pay the mortgage. I will keep you on my insurance. You will never have to worry about money. To your parents, to my parents, we will be fine. I won't humiliate you. He paused, buttoning his jacket. He adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror, refusing to meet my eyes in the reflection. But emotionally, yes, I'm leaving. I left 8 months ago. David, please. I choked out, sinking to my knees on the floor. Don't do this. I'm drowning. I'm dying in this house. He looked down at me. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of the old David, a flicker of pity, maybe even a flicker of love, but he crushed it. He stomped it out like a cigarette. You're not a prisoner, Jessica, he said. The door is right there. It's unlocked. If you are unhappy, if you are dying, you are free to leave. You can pack a bag and go. You can file for divorce. I won't contest it. You can find a man who doesn't care about your past. You can be happy. I can't be happy without you. Then you have a long, miserable life ahead of you, he said simply. Because the David you want, he doesn't exist anymore. You killed him. The day you decided to lie. He stepped around me. He didn't help me up. He didn't say goodbye. He opened the door. The sound of the rain rushed in, a loud, hissing static. Don't wait up, he said, and then he was gone. The door clicked shut. The sound echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. I stayed on the floor. I don't know how long I lay there. An hour. 2. The cold from the hardwood seeped into my bones. I stared at the door, waiting for him to come back, waiting for him to realise he had been too harsh, waiting for the movie ending where the hero turns around and realises love conquers all. But this isn't a movie, this is my life, and in real life sometimes love isn't enough to scrub away the stain of a lie. I eventually dragged myself up. I walked into the living room and looked out the window, down on the street. Life was moving on. Cars were splashing through puddles. People were rushing to work with their umbrellas. The world didn't care that my heart had just been surgically removed without anaesthesia. So, here I am. I am writing this to you from the couch where I will spend another night alone. My husband is out there somewhere in the city, chasing criminals, putting his life on the line, doing anything to avoid coming home. He pays the bills, he keeps my secrets, he protects my reputation. He is a good man in every definition of the word, but he punishes me every single second of every single day with his indifference. I am living in a golden cage. I have everything a woman could want. Money, status, a handsome husband, but I am starving I am starving for a touch. I am starving for a kind word. I am starving for forgiveness. He gave me a choice, leave and be free or stay and be a ghost. But how can I leave? How can I walk away from the only man I have ever truly loved? How can I accept that my own fear, my own stupidity destroyed the one thing that mattered most? I keep telling myself that time heals all wounds. I keep telling myself that if I just wait, if I just stay for one more month, one more year, he will forgive me. But deep down, I know the truth. The look in his eyes this morning wasn't anger, it was indifference, and indifference is the end of love. So please listen to me. If you are listening to this and you are holding onto a secret, if you are hiding a part of your past from the person you love because you are afraid they will leave, tell them now. Rip the band-aid off. Let them scream. Let them cry. Let them decide. Because if you don't, if you let them find out from someone else, if you let them find out when it's too late, you won't just lose them. You will lose yourself. You will end up like me, a woman with a ring on her finger, a roof over her head, and a husband who looks at her and sees absolutely nothing. I am Jessica. I am 25 years old and I am serving a life sentence in the prison of my own making. Pray for me because I don't know how to save myself.